The whole law office had gone quiet. Not the normal quiet of people walking. This was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like rain clouds hanging low over a hot town. Even the air conditioner in the hallway sounded too loud. Files lay open on desks. Phones buzzed and were ignored. Men in dark suits whispered in corners. Women in neat skirts looked at each other and quickly looked away. At the end of the corridor, inside a glass office, Amara Bello sat alone. Everyone thought she had lost the $300 million case. Just 1 hour earlier, she had walked into the Federal Commercial Court in Eco City with her head high and her shoulders straight. She was one of the youngest senior lawyers in the city, and many people knew her name. She had worked for years to build that name. She came early, dressed sharply, spoke clearly, and never let anyone see fear on her face. But that morning, fear had found her anyway. The case was the biggest of her life. A farming cooperative from Olanrewaju Valley had been cheated by a huge food company called Golden Basket Holdings. The company had taken their land, broken old agreements, and left hundreds of families with almost nothing. The farmers said their fathers had planted on that soil. Their mothers had sowed maize, cassava, and pepper from that same land. Their children had eaten from it. Without it, they had no future. Amara had promised to fight for them. For 8 months she worked like a woman chasing fire with her bare hands. She read every paper, checked every date, and questioned every witness. Many nights she slept in the office. Sometimes she woke up with her cheek on a file and her pen still in her hand. She missed weddings. She missed birthdays. She stopped answering friends who said she was working too hard. In her mind, only one thing mattered. She had to win. But court was not kind that day. Golden Basket came ready. Their lawyers were old, clever, and smiling in that calm way people smile when they think they already own tomorrow. Their lead counsel, Chief Baligan, stood with his silver hair and smooth voice and took apart Amara's strongest evidence piece by piece. A witness she trusted changed his words. A document she believed would save the farmers was ruled incomplete. Then the judge frowned at one missing filing date, and everything began to fall apart. Amara tried to recover. She argued. She stood firm. She spoke with all the strength in her chest. But each time she lifted one point, Chief Baligan knocked it down. By noon, even people on her own side looked defeated. Outside the courtroom, one of the farmers, old Mama Sod, grabbed Amara's hand with rough fingers and tired eyes. "My daughter," she whispered, "tell me true. Have we lost?" Amara wanted to lie. She wanted to smile and say no. But the words stuck in her throat. "I am still fighting," she said softly. Mama Sod nodded, but her face fell anyway. Now, back in her office, Amara stared at the city through the glass wall. Down below, buses honked. Hawkers moved between cars. The afternoon sun shone on rooftops and billboards and church signs and market umbrellas. Life outside went on as if nothing had happened. As if whole villages were not holding their breath because of one case. A tear slid down her face, and she wiped it away at once. She hated crying at work. Then there was a small knock on the open door. Amara did not turn. "Please, I need to be alone." No one answered. She looked back. It was only the janitor. His name was Musa. Most people in the office barely noticed him. He was an older man with kind eyes, dark hands, and a back that bent slightly when he pushed his cleaning cart. He spoke gently and moved quietly. Every morning he arrived before many of the lawyers. He swept the floors, emptied the bins, and greeted the receptionist with the same warm smile. Some people greeted him back. Some did not. Amara, if she was honest, had not paid him much attention either. She knew he existed. She knew he cleaned her office. She knew he always said, "Good morning, madam," in a respectful voice. but she had never asked where he came from or what his story was. In a place filled with partners, clients, interns, and judges, Musa had become part of the background, like the shining floor or the humming lights. Now he stood by the door, holding a small stack of fresh paper towels. "I said I want to be alone," Amara said again, though her voice was weaker this time. Musa nodded. "Yes, madam. I only came because your bin is full." Amara looked away. "Fine. Do it quickly." He moved quietly around the room, changing the bin liner, straightening a chair, wiping a mark from the glass table. He did not ask questions. He did not say sorry. Somehow that made it easier for Amara to breathe. After a moment, he spoke. "When the river is loud, that is when the fish hide deep." Amara frowned. "What?" Musa tied the bin and lifted it. "My father used to say that in our village near Jeba. Noise can make people miss what is under the water." Amara let out a tired breath. "I do not need proverbs today, Musa." He bowed his head a little. "Forgive me, madam." He turned and left. Amara dropped into her chair and covered her face with both hands. She thought of the farmers waiting in buses to return home. She thought of the news headlines that would come by evening. "Young lawyer fails in major land case." She thought of the senior partners who had already doubted her. She thought of her late father, who used to tell everybody in LA's town that his daughter would become a woman who fought for the weak. A message came from her boss. "Prepare for settlement. We may have no choice." Amara read it 3 times. Settlement. That meant accepting defeat with polite words. That meant telling poor farmers to take crumbs from the same company that had crushed them. That meant the land might never return to them. Her chest tightened. An hour passed. The office slowly emptied. Evening light turned gold. Somewhere down the hall, a cleaner's radio played a soft high-life song. At last Amara stood up to gather her files. Then she noticed something on her desk. A small folded note. She was sure it had not been there before. Her name was written on the front in neat, careful handwriting. She opened it. Inside, only 3 words were written. "Check page 70. Amara stared. For 1 second she felt confused. Then her eyes widened. Page 70. Page 70 of what? She grabbed the thick land agreement file from her desk, hands shaking now, and began to turn pages fast. 32. 48. 61. 68. Then page 70. Her breath caught so sharply that she nearly cried out. There, hidden in an old annex nobody had mentioned in court that morning, was a clause. A clause that changed everything. And at that exact moment, her phone rang. It was the judge's clerk. Amara stared at her phone as it kept ringing. For a second, she could not move. Her fingers felt cold, but her heart was beating so fast that it almost hurt. The note was still in one hand. The file was open on her desk. Page 70 stared back at her like a door that had suddenly opened in a wall she thought was solid. The phone rang again. She answered at last. "Hello. Barrister Amara Bello," said a firm voice. "Yes, speaking. This is the clerk to Justice Adebayo. His Lordship has requested that counsel return to court tomorrow morning with the full original agreement file and all annexes. There is a question regarding a document reference made during proceedings today." Amara straightened. "A question regarding which document reference?" "The Annex Land Continuity Clause," the clerk replied. Opposing counsel mentioned it in passing after adjournment, but it was not fully addressed in open court. His Lordship wants clarification. Amara's mouth parted. Chief Balogun had mentioned it. In passing. So they knew. Or maybe they had just discovered it too. Either way, tomorrow was no longer the funeral of a case. Tomorrow was a fight again. I understand, she said, forcing calm into her voice. I will be there. The call ended. For one long moment Amara stood frozen, then she sat hard in her chair and looked again at page 70. The clause was written in dry, formal language, but its meaning was clear. Golden Basket Holdings could not fully claim the farmer's land unless certain renewal terms were met with signatures from elected cooperative heads every 3 years. Those signatures were missing. Worse still for the company, the clause stated that if the renewal process was broken, all control rights would return to the original farming cooperative. Return. The word seemed to shine on the page. Amara quickly flipped back to the cover, checked the annex list, then checked the court copy she had used all week. The annex was in the master file but missing from the slim litigation bundle prepared for argument. Missing. Not because it did not exist, but because no one on her team had thought it was important enough to lift out and place in front of the judge. No one. A painful hit rose in her chest. She had worked so hard, yet something so important had almost been buried by carelessness. Then another thought came. Musa. She looked at the note again. The handwriting was careful, steady, almost old-fashioned. Not the hurried writing of a young intern. Not the slanted scribble of one of the partners. Musa had been the last person in her office. Musa had left the note. But how could a janitor know about page 70 in a $300 million land case? Amara did not waste another second. She picked up the file and hurried into the hallway. Most of the lights were off now, and the office had that after-hours feeling, quiet but not fully asleep. She checked the records room first. No Musa. She checked the break room. Empty cups, no Musa. At the back stairwell she finally heard the soft scrape of a mop. He was there, cleaning the last stretch of floor near the emergency exit. Musa. He turned, surprised but calm. Madam. Amara walked straight to him, holding up the note. Did you leave this on my desk? He looked at it and gave a small nod. Yes. Her eyes narrowed with confusion. How did you know about page 70? Musa rested both hands on the mop handle. For a moment, he said nothing. His face was gentle as always, but now there was something else in it too. Not fear. Not pride. Something deeper. The kind of stillness that comes from a person who has seen many seasons. I read, he said simply. Amara blinked. You read the case file? It was open when I came to empty your bin. Papers had fallen beside the desk. I was arranging them back in order. I saw the annex page. The land map caught my eye first because it looked like the one from my home area. Then I read more. Amara stared. You should not be reading client files. You are right, Musa said. I should not. I am sorry. His apology was humble, but Amara hardly heard it. Her mind was racing. You understood that clause? He nodded again. Yes. How? Musa gave a small, tired smile. Because many years ago, before I pushed a cleaning cart in this building, I worked with land papers every day. Amara's breath slowed. Musa leaned the mop against the wall and motioned to the bench by the stairwell window. If you have a moment, madam, I will tell you. Amara sat. For once, she did not think about status or time or the dust on the bench. Musa sat beside her, not too close, and folded his hands. I am from a town near Jebel, he began. My father was a teacher. My mother sold bean cakes and groundnut by the roadside. We did not have much, but they loved books. They believed education was a kind of lamp. If you carried it well, you would not walk in darkness for long. He looked down the hallway, as if seeing another life there. I studied hard. I went to university. I trained as a legal clerk first, then as a land records officer. For years, I worked in the Registry of Estate Land Commission. I handled deeds, leases, community transfers, renewal agreements. I learned how powerful people hide traps inside long papers. Amara listened without blinking. Musa continued, then politics changed. A new chairman came. Good people were pushed out. Bad people came in. I refused to alter a village record for a businessman who wanted to seize family land. I thought truth would protect me. It did not. His smile was sad now. I lost my job. I was blacklisted. My wife fell ill not long after. Hospital bills finished our savings. By the time she died, I had already sold my car, then my land, then almost everything. My son left for Kaduna to find work. My daughter married and moved far away. I came to Eco City because a cousin said there would always be cleaning work in a big city. He was right. The stairwell felt very quiet. Amara looked at his worn hands. Hands she had seen pushing bins and wiping tables. Hands that had once turned the pages of official records and probably signed many important files. I am sorry, she said softly. Musa gave a little shrug. Life is not a straight road, madam. Sometimes a person begins in one place and is swept somewhere else. But the mind still remembers what it has learned. Amara looked again at the note. 3 words. Check page 70. So simple. So calm. Yet those words might have saved hundreds of families. Why did you help me? She asked. You barely know me. Musa's answer came without delay. Because those farmers are like my people. Because land is not only money. It is memory. It is burial ground. It is children's school fees. It is dignity. And because this morning, when I passed the waiting area, I heard one old woman praying for you as if you were her own child. Amara felt her throat tighten. Mama sobbed. Outside the window, evening had deepened into night. The city lights were on now, yellow and white and blinking red in the distance. Down below, traffic moved like a slow river. Amara stood. Musa, tomorrow I have to present this before the judge properly. I need to understand every part of it. Every weakness. Every question Chief Balagan might ask. Musa rose too. Then we should begin now. Oui. If you will allow me, I can explain the clause history. Not as your lawyer. Only as someone who has seen these documents used before. Amara looked at him fully then, as if seeing him for the first time. Not the janitor. A man with knowledge. A man with grief. A man who had fallen and still carried something valuable inside him. Yes, she said. Please. So they returned to her office together, the young lawyer and the old janitor. They sat across from each other under the soft white lights while the rest of the building slept. Musa explained how renewal language could be twisted, how annexes were often ignored, how companies like to bury important obligations behind maps and technical wording. Amara wrote notes quickly, asking question after question. Each answer sharpened her thinking. Each minute made tomorrow feel less like doom and more like battle. Near midnight, when she finally called the farmer's representative and told him there was still hope, the man began to cry on the phone. And when Amara ended the call, she turned to Musa with tears in her own eyes. But before she could speak, her email chimed. A new court filing had just arrived from Golden Basket Holdings. Amara opened it, read the first page, and her face went cold. They had found a way to fight back. Amara stared at the screen, reading the new filing again and again. Golden Basket Holdings was not giving up. Their lawyers had moved fast. Very fast. In the filing, they claimed the page 70 annex had no force because the cooperative leaders who first signed the land agreement had later accepted community development payments, which the company now called proof of renewed consent. They attached photos of a borehole, a school block with peeling paint, and a health center signboard with the company's name on it. They also attached signed receipts from a few people in the villages. Amora's heart sank for a moment. It was clever. Very clever. Golden Basket was trying to say, we gave them benefits, so they agreed. We built things, so they cannot complain now. We paid some people, so everyone is bound. Musa leaned forward from across the desk. He adjusted his glasses and read silently. Then he shook his head. No, he said. Amara looked up quickly. No. Musa tapped the screen with one finger. This is noise. She almost smiled despite herself. The river is loud. And the fish hide deep, he said. Amara sat straighter. Tell me. Musa pointed again. Community development gifts are not the same as lawful renewal. A borehole is not a signature. A school wall is not elected consent. If the clause requires approval from cooperative heads, then the company must show proper approval from cooperative heads. Not just receipts from frightened villagers or local middlemen. Amora's tired eyes lit up. Yes, she said. Yes. The clause is specific. Musa nodded. Very specific. And specific words matter in land law. Amara turned back to her laptop and began typing notes. The fear was still there, but now it had shape, and anything with shape could be challenged. All night they worked. They checked the original annex again. They marked the exact wording. They listed the names of the elected cooperative heads from the years in question. Amara called one of the junior lawyers on her team and told him to wake up, get dressed, and start locating the cooperative election records from Olanrawaju Valley. She called another and ordered him to verify whether the signers on Golden Basket's receipts were even authorized to act for the farmers. By 2 a.m., the office no longer felt like a place of defeat. It felt like a war room. The junior lawyers arrived looking sleepy and confused, but one glance at Amora's face made them understand that everything had changed. Nobody asked why the janitor was sitting at the conference table with legal papers open before him. Nobody dared. At dawn, the first call came in. One of the names on Golden Basket's receipts belonged to a man who had died 2 years before the date beside his signature. The second call came 20 minutes later. Another signer had never been a cooperative head at all. He was the younger brother of a local contractor who once worked for the company. Then came the third call. The health center shown in the company's filing had never been completed. It had a signboard and one painted wall, nothing more. Amara stood still after hearing that last part. Then she slowly closed her eyes. Golden Basket had not only bent the truth. They had built part of their defense on lies. By 8 in the morning, the farmers were already gathering outside the court. Men in faded caps. Women in wrappers and headscarves. Young people holding plastic folders. Some had traveled all night again, refusing to stay home when their land was being argued over by strangers in suits. Mama Sod was there too, sitting on a low bench with both hands wrapped around a flask of tea. When Amara arrived, many faces turned toward her. Yesterday, they had looked at her with pain. Today, they looked at her with something small and trembling. Hope. Mama Sod stood up slowly. My daughter. Amara took her hand. We are not finished. The old woman's eyes filled with tears. God will stand with you. Amara nodded, though her own throat tightened too much for speech. Inside the courtroom, the seats filled quickly. Word had spread that the case was still alive. Reporters came in. Young law students packed the back row. Office workers whispered in the hallway. Even lawyers from other chambers appeared, pretending they had business nearby. At the front, Chief Balegan arranged his files with slow confidence. He looked as polished as ever, but when he saw the thick original agreement bundle on Amora's table, his expression changed for a second. Only a second. Still, Amara noticed. Justice Adebayo entered, and everybody rose. The court session began. Amara's hands were steady now. That surprised her. Maybe courage was not the absence of fear. Maybe it was simply what remained after fear had shouted itself tired. The judge adjusted his glasses. Counsel, this court requested clarification regarding Annex page 70 and the issue of renewal compliance. Land counsel for the claimant may proceed. Amara stood. My lord, she began, yesterday this matter appeared simple. Today it is not. Today the court has before it evidence that the defendant's claim to continued land control may have failed years ago. A low murmur ran through the room. Chief Balogun rose at once. My lord, land counsel is dramatizing. Amara did not look at him. She walked the judge through the clause line by line. She showed how the renewal process was meant to work. She showed the missing approvals. She showed the difference between lawful cooperative consent and scattered receipts from unrelated individuals. Then, one by one, she attacked Golden Basket's fresh filing. She spoke of the dead signer. A gasp moved through the courtroom. She spoke of the unauthorized names. She spoke of the unfinished health center and the painted shell presented as proof of goodwill. Each point struck like a hammer. Chief Balogun objected twice, then 3 times, but the judge let Amara continue. At last Chief Balogun stood to defend his client. He was still skilled, still smooth, still dangerous. He argued that the farmers had benefited from the company's presence and that technical defects should not erase years of operation. He tried to make the annex seem minor. He tried to make the missing approval sound harmless. But now the room had changed. Yesterday, Amara was the one trying to survive. Today, she was the one pressing forward. When Chief Balogun finished, Justice Adebayo leaned back in his chair and looked over the file for a long time. The silence stretched. Nobody moved. Even the reporters stopped writing. Then the judge spoke. This court is deeply troubled. No one breathed. The Annex Renewal Clause is not decorative language. It is binding language. The defendant had a duty to comply with it. On the evidence before me, that compliance has not been shown. Amara felt her knees weaken, but she stayed standing. Justice Adebayo continued. Further, the court is disturbed by material filed this morning that appears unreliable on its face. A dead signatory, unauthorized representatives, and questionable development claims do not assist the defendant. Chief Balogun lowered his eyes. The judge lifted the main file and set it down firmly. Accordingly, this court finds that the defendant's continuing control over the disputed land lacks valid renewal under the governing agreement. Interim possession and community rights are hereby restored to the Olanrewaju Valley Farming Cooperative pending final enforcement orders and damages assessment. For 1 second the courtroom was stunned. Then it broke open. People cried out. Some shouted thanks to God. Mama Sod covered her face and began to weep. A young farmer fell to his knees. Reporters rushed for the door to make their calls. Even the law students at the back looked as if they had just seen lightning strike in daylight. Amara sat down slowly, her eyes burning. She had won. Not every stage of the legal battle was over yet. There would still be enforcement, damages, and more hearings. But the heart of the case, the part everyone thought was dead, had risen again. And it had risen because of 3 words. Outside the courtroom, the farmers gathered around her, blessing her, thanking her, holding her hands. Cameras flashed. Microphones pushed forward. People called her brilliant, fearless, gifted. But Amara's eyes searched the crowd for only one person. At last she saw Musa standing a little apart under a flowering tree near the court steps. He had come quietly, wearing his cleanest shirt and holding his old cap in both hands. He was smiling, but only a little, as if he had expected nothing for himself. Amara walked straight to him. The crowd parted, confused. Without caring who was watching, she stopped before him and said, they are praising the wrong person. Musa shook his head. No, madam. You stood and fought. I only pointed. You did more than that, Amara said. Her voice trembled. You saw what all of us missed. The farmers around them listen now. Mama Sod stepped closer. Is this the man? Amara nodded. Yes. He left a note. The old woman took Musa's hands and held them tightly. Then may your children never know shame, she said. May your home know peace. Musa bowed his head, overwhelmed. Right there on the court steps, in front of lawyers, farmers, and reporters, Amara made a quiet promise to herself. She would never again measure a person by clothes, title, or office door. Wisdom could wear a suit, yes. But sometimes it carried a mop. That evening, back at the office, the partners who had once doubted her came with wide smiles and proud words. The staff clapped when she entered. News of the victory had spread across Eco City. But before Amara spoke to any of them, she walked to the notice board near reception and pinned up a single clean sheet of paper. It was not a case memo. It was not a press statement. It was a new staff announcement. By the next morning, the whole building would read it. And when Musa arrived for work and saw his name under the bold heading, he stopped walking and stared.